Okay, everything's being recorded from here on out.
Uh-oh. Did you hear what I said about Ed?
No, that didn't get recorded.
This is where all was.
I'll say it again though, turn it up.
And now what's happening is all this is all this gets dying.
Dave, we're live.
Thank you.
Get a chance, Kelly, to go over the budget? Take a look at it.
I did glance at it, yeah.
What's that?
I did get a chance to glance at the changes. Everything was in there.
Yeah, everything that we had
Talked about.
talked about and even in a minute, so.
Yeah, it looked good. Fine.
Yeah, I know. Oh, nice.
We didn't have time built into this meeting.
There's all this
Tomorrow.
shirt on.
I don't know.
We should have nap time built into it.
We're streaming.
It's not showing up.
That's it.
That's it?
I don't know where we got. Why not? Yeah, we gotta put it down by
$93.
George.
I found 2018, 2019.
Joe was trying to beam down to the floor surface. doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does.
So I'll send an email.
It's already beamed down. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he looks like he might do it just like that.
He kind of does, doesn't he? Oh, my God.
Oh,
Yeah, as long as we can take the Did you see the pictures online?
No. I didn't get a chance to show.
I'm sorry.
The picture worked well.
Christopher Gloria.
Victor,
So should he?
I got a new lens the night before.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I'm real excited to get after
I got it attached. Yeah, it's attached. to the- Yeah, I'm like, why does that keep showing up?
It was about
Because we
2:30.
incorporated the site.
Yes, maybe half.
Hey, what are you mentally out of it or what?
Communistic thoughts. So, any further,
It looks pretty thin.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
And I think that was just weather.
I know, right, yeah.
Eugene.
Hey, how's it going?
Eugene, how you doing?
Meeting about Sports Club and I don't know if this is what you needed, if you know something more, I just suggest for you and then decide what's gonna change next year.
Exactly.
Thanks.
So-
All right, last year we had. That's not.
Oh, I thought you-
I saw that about 12%. Hey, there we go. So we got a little bit more than $700.
I know, right? Yeah, I special. It's only employee, only employee going that. So you are well dressed this evening, I think.
I'm working on trying to get like how you want it.
I just got curious what it would look like throwing it to the MSIs. Like actually going to library.
Nobody's sitting on this side. I'll even out the room.
Well, you can sit like in one of the big kids' chairs.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not in a timeout today.
That's right. Well, we're gonna watch you. They gotta behave.
I know.
Lost Joe.
Ooh.
One of these days I have to stop by on that. That said it.
So
And
great.
do what?
I haven't changed my time.
Oh, mine too.
7:46.
Or he could just make it so we could set the time on these, or they would pick it up.
Should be automatic.
One would think.
They're all different.
Is your time on yours
Screwed up?
7:47? Yeah.
She's fine.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
we've got 7:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call please. Mr. Perino,
Here.
Mr. Datley,
Here.
Mr. Thorne,
Here.
Mr. Hoffman,
Here.
Mr. Nimitz.
Here.
Oh, Mr. Harney.
Here.
Okay, we have got a full board. We have two of the trustees attending remotely, which is still allowed under the gubernatorial pandemic announcement by the governor. The other four trustees are in the village hall along with myself, the village clerk, the village finance director, and the chief of police. So as we've got two members attending remote, all votes will be by roll call this evening. Moving on, minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2022.
So move, Pareno.
Second, Thorne.
Moved by Prano, seconded by Thorne. Is there any additions or corrections? There being none, roll call, please. Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Perino,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Datley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, the motion so passes. Okay, moving on to the president's report. First item I've got to report this evening is in regards to the block party process. In years past, block party requests have kind of been circular. So somebody will say, hey, I want to have a block party. They come to a board meeting and say, I want a block party. The board says, go talk to the chief. And then the chief comes back and says they can do this and that. And then the board says, let's them have a block party. So rather than have this thing continually circle around and around, I decided it's time to nail it to the table and set up a policy and a procedure. And in your packets this evening, you will see the first draft that the chief has presented on the block party procedure. It's not going to be involved, but there are a few things in the past. People have asked that you notify the neighbors around you that you're doing it. That we've asked, blocking off the road, obtaining support from the police and the fire as far as a demonstration type thing for the neighbors or something. What time's it going to start? When's it going to end? No, you cannot have alcohol on public property. No, you cannot sell alcohol without a license, that type of stuff. So that now when somebody calls Village Hall, the staff doesn't have to say you have to go to the board, and the board says you have to go to the chief, and then the chief comes back and tells us. Now, they can go to the police, they can get the form, they can fill it out, it can be reviewed, and then the chief can simply at the meeting say, hey, we've approved a permit for a block party on August 34th. Now, in the 900 block of Deer Lane. So we don't have to go on and chase our residents on around, either about, oh, you got to wait another 2 weeks for the board meeting to come together to get this information. And we say, take it to the chief and have him bring it back to us. So I thought I'd let you all know that that's in the process and that's going on. You can, if you got any comments or questions, let us know. The next item I've got is sort of a little knuckle rap from the attorney. The board does now have the authorization to issue temporary variances. We could have a consensus, that we would let the food truck be at the school, but we do not have, as a board, the authority to grant temporary variances. So if you read through Mr. Schuster's little note there, you will realize that, what we did to the past meeting was not quite a Hoyle. We've been reminded in the future that there's another process that should be used and not that one. With that being said, I'll take this to the clerk's report.
I have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Planning and zoning, no report. The attorney, we've already discussed that. The engineer has submitted his quick update. Expect more coming the 2nd of May. Moves us on to the Director of Finance, Mr. Van.
Need a motion for warrants in the amount of $105,869.39.
So moved, Diatley.
Second, Harney.
Moved by Diatley, seconded by Harney to approve the warrants of April 18th in the amount of $105,869.39. Any additions, deletions, comments, or questions? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, and motion so passes.
That's all I have for at this point.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. Comments from the public? No comments from the public this evening. Move on to trustees reports, roads and parks, Mr. Harney.
A couple things here. In the past, we've had a resident request what we could do to improve the condition of Sabatino Ball Field. We've heard your requests. New bases have been ordered. The problem with the field is when it rains, it floods. So Kyle has done some investigating, and evidently there's a special soil mixture that we could possibly use for the infield. And when I meet with the Park District regarding the Sabatino playground equipment, we'll see if we can't save the Sleepy Hollow some money and see if we can't work something out with them. I'll report more on that later. I would like to make a few comments about the playground equipment. And I'd like to make it clear, the playground equipment is inspected regularly, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing unsafe about the equipment as it stands now. The equipment is at its service life, and cosmetically it does show that. We're presently looking for grants to help defray the cost of new equipment in the future. That cost could easily run over $100,000, which is kind of a surprise to everyone that hears that. But it is safe to use, nothing unsafe at all right now for it to be used. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Next item up, finance, Mr. Hoffman.
Okay, the Finance Committee met last Thursday, the 14th, and we spent a fair amount of time going over not only the budget, but looking at proposals on new audit firms, also cost control, and another item that you're going to see on the agenda is an Amazon business account, and we'll touch on all of those as we go through this. But to start with, the selection of the audit firm, as you all know, if I'm correct, Mueller sent us notification that they could no longer provide the services, even though they were in the middle of, they had done the first year of a 3-year contract. They said that they had lost a number of personnel, and they said that they were ceasing services to the village at that point. So we were kind of left standing, left with what do we do? So Eugene has gone out and solicited 4 proposals to 4 audit companies. We received 3 back. Am I correct? 3 or 2?
5 audit firms and received 3 back.
3 back. And with that, as we went through, and I believe there's some information in the minutes, L&A has turned out to be the least expensive and has also serviced the village in the past. They've got prior experience with the village. President Pickett, I believe, for a number of years, haven't they? So they off and on, so they are familiar with it, and they came in with the best pricing, and we're actually lower in pricing in the second year, is it? Third year?
In all
All of them, than Mueller. So we're actually making out better with this one. So with that, we're going to make a motion to approve L&A audit firm for the village, which is Latherac Payment, for 3 years.
of them, with an option for 2 additional years.
Correct. At that point. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve L&A as the audit firm for the village of Sleepy Hollow.
Second.
Do we want to add who can sign for it? Yeah, and you also want to have who can sign that Mr. Pickett or myself can engage, sign the contract with them.
Okay. So that would be either or, correct?
Right.
Finance director, and that President Pickett or Eugene Vance could, the finance director could sign the contract with L&A audit. And with that, I made a motion and
I seconded.
Mark seconded.
Okay, motion by Hoffman, seconded by Thorne to approve Lauterbach and Alman as the new auditors for the village of Sleepy Hollow, according to their request for proposal. They have come in as the low bidder. They have experience with the village and have been recommended by the finance committee. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Hardy.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes and no negative votes. Motion so passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Next section, as you all know, I'm still getting my feet wet with the with overseeing some of the finances, and I've learned a lot from Eugene too in regards to municipal financial structures. And as part of that, with reviewing the monthly billings, the reports, and all that, I've constantly asked or challenged Eugene on some of the costs that we incur. And as you look across, I mean, I don't know how many of you actually drill into the balance, I mean, to the journals and ledgers, you know, monthly, and you look at it, you'll see a lot of different types of billings. I mean, whether it be the water and sewer, be Elgin, you know, West Dundee, be computer services, whatever. But as I started drilling in, I look at like 2 that come to mind would be legal and also engineering. And I've asked him a lot of times, what are some of these billings? What are these? And all I would presume are completely legit. But as you know, we're working on a pretty tight budget and do not have a lot of surplus at the end of the year. And I found out that there are times when some of, like, I won't say myself, I haven't done anything yet, but peers may just inadvertently, arbitrarily pick up the phone and talk to somebody, it may be engineering or I would hope not legal, and we incur some expenses. And it's hourly fees. And if you drill in, you'll see some of these. So going forward, I brought this up at the finance meeting and I asked Eugene about it, and President Pickett was there also. And I said, so that means I could pick up and, I don't know, call, what is it, Hines or whatever, or somebody like that. And he said, well, now, you know, it could be done. And I said, so will we incur an expense? And the answer is yes. And that expense is, I don't know, 15 minutes or an hour and 100 and some an hour. And legal's like, how much is legal?
200 plus.
200 plus an hour. So I said, well, you know, that's a little strange because when I was in business, you know, there had to be a chain of command and there had to be authorization so that you just had visibility. We knew what the expenses were. We're not saying nobody can call or whatever. So at that, I proposed, and the finance team also agreed, the other finance members agreed too, that we put some controls in place that haven't been there in the past. And those controls would be going forward, anybody that wants to talk to, whether it's legal, whether it's engineering, whatever, that's fine, they can do it. But it's got to go through the appropriate individual. And that individual would be, if it's anything to do with engineering or whatever, that would be Kyle or President Pickett. If it's legal, it would pretty much be President Pickett or the chief, so who can answer a lot of questions. And with that, we'd just like to get something official as a proposal so that it gives us some checks and balances and we don't run these. And I know it might be digging into the minutia if that's the case, but you got to start somewhere. And as I said, I've told President Pickett when they started going through this, I'll challenge a lot of stuff. And Eugene could tell you that every week or every week he gives me the billings or the journals. I'll come back and say, what's this, what's that, why did this happen? They're just questions and answers, and most are, so far everything's been legit, but I think we just need a couple more controls in place so that we're not going off the reservation. Any questions?
That sounds like a good idea.
So with that, I would like to, now, President Pick, is that a motion that we would make that would?
It's the recommended policy or recommended procedure from the finance committee to the board.
Okay.
Motion.
And the recommended procedure from the finance committee to the board would be to put cost controls in place that would require any of us to go through the appropriate individuals, whether it be engineering, legal, chief department, police, and President Pickett, who would have the final say in it, before contacting any of the outside sources where we could incur an expense. So with that, I'd like to make the motion to have that approved going forward.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Hoffman, seconded by Diatley to authorize or to accept the recommended policy and procedure from Finance Committee that all calls to the attorney or the village engineer be checked either through the appropriate department head or the village president. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
So
What
I
about a
made,
resident,
when
what
I,
about a resident contacting the lawyer directly?
No.
It should apply to a resident also.
The attorney will call me if a resident reaches out to them.
Okay,
so I made the mistake when I first joined the board of reaching out to Mark Schuster, asking questions, and did not realize I got dinged 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it was. I guess my question is, why are we trustees then? We can't communicate with Mark Schuster, or we can't communicate with
I'm not saying that
Jeff.
you can't, we're saying that
I have
if
to
you
go
have
through
a
the
question,
village
check
president.
with the
Right.
appropriate department head or with myself.
Right, so in that case, whatever knowledge, background, information, whatever that yourself has or the chief has, more than likely, the question would end there.
And we might have,
So-
might most likely might have the answer for you already, and that's free of charge, where if you call, you're gonna get the same answer.
Oh, I know, and I
You
got
have to pay
billed,
for
I
it.
understand that. It just, again, it just takes away from the fact that we're, as a trustee, what do I do? I mean, there is no, I have no real function.
I guess, we're not taking anything away.
I'm a voice from ICCI, just like the resident that came in earlier today, asked me some questions. I said to him, I don't make those decisions. I can inquire through building department for you, sir, and I will be happy to get back to you. But, it just kind of, it's almost like they can go directly to the village president or the chief and not even come to me as a trustee, is all I'm saying. I understand the reasoning for it. It just takes away some of the, as volunteers, we want to be engaged,
Yeah,
but
but
yet,
that person's likely to reach out to you before they are to me.
right, and that's true.
Yeah. so-
Yeah, and I'll reach out to Barb, because I know she won't bill me, to ask the question of how she will handle this permit in this case. But if that was escalated up to a legal question, then I will ask you, President Pickett, to contact Mr. Schuster, or I may be able to summarize what the resident's asking me. And then, with your experience, you'd say, okay, here's our this is what we should do. Again, guys, I'm just trying to make the point that as a trustee, it takes away from any autonomy, maybe is the word, that I am not permitted to reach out to Mark Schuster directly. That's all I'm bringing it up. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up.
No, that's fine. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I agree with George that it's a check and balance system. And it allows us to know if you then talk to the attorney, we can go back and say, hey, trustee so-and-so, did you talk to the attorney for an hour or did you talk to him for 10 minutes? So it's a check and balance on the money.
Right.
So that's where
And what I would recommend to any of you is drill in to what I refer to as the P&L, but it's not. I mean, drill into the budget and take a look at the monthly expenses that we incur, especially from legal and from engineering. And engineering, I think year to date is, if I'm correct, like almost 150,000, 144.
Where we approve the water main extension.
Right, no, I know that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ancillary expenses to that too. And we're not, I mean, I'm not looking at it to stop anybody from doing anything, but it's just a matter, like, I have to do the same thing. I've got to go through President Pickett, or I'd ask Eugene, or if it's anything legal before I go there, I'd ask the chief. I mean, chances are, if it's anything to do in that area, he'd know and give me the answer. And it's just more to control the village expenses and looking at them. It could run rampant if we just let everybody, even myself, just call Mr. Schuster or call Jeff or whatever, which I look to Kyle to do that. And Kyle does.
And I will just say that being on the board for so long, especially Bob Shields was that much way, is that's what I've always done. And I thought that that's what everybody else was doing. So if we need to put that in writing, I think it's a great policy, because I can personally say that I've never called up Attorney Schuster or the village engineer without the permission of the village president, which is just a good way of doing things.
And Kyle does meet with with Jeff twice a month, bi-monthly. I believe he does. He has a conference call with him. And with that, he can, if you contact him, and I have contacted Kyle since I've been here, over the last, say, 9 months, 2 or 3 times. And he's either given me the answer immediately or gotten back to me within 24 hours. So I couldn't ask for more. So,
So the other question I have for you is, what happens if the reverse happens? Because I get several calls from the engineer, especially on the water main project or otherwise, and I have actually gotten emails or phone calls from Attorney Schuster clarifying things on water and sewer. So if that happens, we should just clarify what that is then.
Well, Joe, those are usually responses or inquiries for information from the attorney and the engineer. And when that happens, and he's obviously been talking to somebody, they wouldn't have just.
Yeah, I'm just so that
Yeah,
okay. I just want
to. We're aware of it at that point.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell the engineer or the attorney that if he has a question for a trustee, he has to touch base with me first.
Right.
He's going
to. As I said, I thought that was the policy we're operating under. That's the policy as I operate under the license.
A little slippery.
okay, finishing the vote.
Okay, no more discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
All right.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Hardy.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, the motion so passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, the next one hopefully will be an easy one before we get into the budget. It was brought up at the Finance Committee meeting, actually by Chief Parma, and it talked about, if I'm correct, Chief, toner for like a new printer we have. And if we go through the process that we have in place, that toner is going to cost us $150,
About $170.
about $170. But yet the same one on Amazon was what, $56? And we also looked at several other elements and the same thing. And Kyle was here and he talked about components, that he needs, or even looking at the budget this week, or looking at the expenses. There were some diamond bits and things like that were on there that I have no doubt whatsoever that if we had the capability of purchasing elsewhere, like through Amazon in a controlled way, we could reduce our expense dramatically. So with that, with the brainstorming the chief had brought up, he said that there are business accounts with Amazon that we could, proceed with that would save us substantially. And also, if you're familiar with Amazon, you usually get it within 1 to 3 days, depending on it. So I believe it was Catherine on the finance committee also brought up that Amazon now has a business account where they will issue a invoice. Correct, Eugene?
I can speak a little bit more on this.
Okay.
So there's two different types of Amazon business accounts. There's the regular one that's free. And they also have, just like a personal Prime account, there's a business Prime account. For a one user Prime account is $69 a year. And with that, you get the free shipping and stuff like that. And so they do offer the 30-day invoicing. If you have some of the higher level accounts, you could get like a 45 or a 60-day, but then that is at an increased cost. So basically, if we did go with the Prime, we would have to decide whether we want just the freebie one or the Prime account where we would have to pay. In both of those, we would have be able to give them our tax letter, so we wouldn't be charged for taxes. Now, they also had something where we could use a tax letter on a personal account, but then I would have to make the purchases on my own personal account and then being reimbursed by the village, which kind of gets messy where our personal finances are mixed with the villages.
Yeah, I would agree. So I guess what we're proposing is that have you done the due diligence of looking into it just briefly?
I probably spent about an hour this morning looking into it.
And and those of you, if you're Amazon, I mean, the Prime pays for itself in a matter of just a couple of months with the shipping alone. Just myself, I've ordered 3 things, for the garage in the last week. And if I had paid shipping on that alone, I probably would have paid about $40, and I don't pay a dime. So I mean, the shipping can pay for itself in just a matter of a month or so, especially with the village. So I guess what we needed to make the decision was, and Eugene, I guess I base it on what you found out today. You're saying that the invoicing would not be the recommended way to go?
No, we can do the invoicing. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, it's there are other places that we could purchase stuff with that if we had a credit card. Wendy had a situation where she needed to purchase something from, there's like Office Max or Office Depot, one of the two or whatever, but the only way she could do it is with a credit card. And since the village does not have a village credit card, it would have to be purchased on a person's credit card, but then we weren't able to get the tax letter because you're now purchasing it with a personal card.
And I've seen some of those expenses on the monthly. I mean, when you give me the sign-offs where we do it and we have to reimburse.
Right. So, it's like I said, again, the decision is, do we want the freebie account or do we want the Prime account? And do we want the invoicing or do we want to try and get a credit card?
So I guess that's what we wanted to surface to the board. And at this point, I think you said the Prime is $69.
$69 for one user. And what we would do is we would have Wendy be the purchaser, because this way Sharon would be receiving the invoices, and then I would be able to oversee the two, and we would have that separation of duties.
Okay, but they're 2 separate issues. We've got the Prime account that we would go with, which would be $69.
Right.
But then you need a credit card to be able to put on file.
The invoicing.
Yes. And have we looked at any type of credit card or?
No, that I have not.
But we could look at BMO
I
first.
can tell you right now, we've looked at credit cards. And as much as I love this village, and I've given a lot of time and energy to this village, I personally refuse to sign a personal guarantee on a credit card for the village.
What do you mean a person grant?
They want a personal guarantee. They want my signature as a personal guarantee on the card. And I'm sorry, but I draw the line at that one, guys.
So it would default. In case it defaulted.
Right.
We have not had a credit card that has not required my signature.
Even with the 3 banks we deal with,
They all want a personal guarantee.
would it do any good to surface that again with them, especially with like BMO and?
I don't know, I know. I have not had any other offers or anything, you know, as I said, it just, the last few times it's come up, they've come to me for a personal signature guarantee on it. And I honestly, guys,
No, I don't blame you. No, I wouldn't do it either,
I wouldn't do it either.
but I can go back to,
yeah, I know.
yeah, but wouldn't they look at assets?
George, I don't know why they have, you know, but continuously, every time a credit card has come up in a conversation for the village, the bottom line is they want a personal guarantee.
How about if I take that and talk to Harris and maybe First American?
Go right ahead.
I know that when I was a treasurer at our church, that I had to give up my social security number and everything in order to get the credit card for the church. I am told that Chase has now changed that policy, but I have not seen it.
Could you check on Chase?
I can check on Chase. Yeah.
Now, we
don't
gave
have
up
a-
we gave up some,
Chase, right, we don't have a relationship
Oh,
with
okay.
Chase, which kind of makes it.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we have BMO or First American. First Americans.
And Elgin's, don't we know?
know?
Yeah.
West Dundee here.
And then we gave up some personal information before when it came to
Yeah.
But that
signatures.
that was different. That was part of the Patriot Act. So to make sure that we're not laundering money.
We're not a terrorist organization. Some people consider us terrorists, but, you know.
They still took my personal information. Okay, I'll make a point by week's end to follow up with at least those 2.
Okay.
But the contact, I've got, a contact at BMO Harris, so I can follow through on that. But the other is, you had a contact, do you know the contact individual at First American, or just go over and see the manager?
I've got a name of a couple of people. I'll get them to you.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then the recommendation, I mean, still till now, we wouldn't need the credit card if we do the invoicing.
Correct.
Okay,
Right. Like I said, having the credit card gives us the flexibility to use other
yeah,
online.
but for now, it would just be Amazon,
Right.
which again would still be, give us significant savings.
Right. One of the other possibilities would have, I forgot the terminology, but you can get a credit card where you can put a balance on it and just maintain.
Like a debit card.
Yeah.
Secured credit card.
Yeah, so a secure credit card so that you can, then make the purchases, but your liability is limited to whatever money's on that particular card. I don't know if it is the village we would be able to get that, but I know that those types of cards exist.
What'd you call that, Chief?
Secured credit card.
Yeah. You can operate that like a petty cash fund where you just keep, X number of dollars on the card.
So we would make the motion to move forward with the invoicing with utilizing Amazon Prime, which would be $69 a year. So the village would have to pay the $69 a year. And they would then invoice us on a monthly basis for, supplies that would be required. And with that, would we, President Pickett, that we ask that be funneled through Eugene for all purchases or department heads?
Well, through Eugene, let him set up how the orders will come through. As he was just saying, you'll probably sort them through Wendy because we want to keep Sharon and Wendy and Eugene separated in the process. We don't want them signing the purchase orders and making the purchases and cutting the checks and.
So Wendy would be the authorized person to make purchases on the account, and then we would, as department heads, we would then. make
Department heads, and
approvals.
you would coordinate with Wendy, give your orders to Wendy, and, you know. So she would be our contact with Amazon. The invoices come in, and Sharon would get them and schedule them for payment. And then Eugene would be our oversight. Yep.
Okay, Eugene, what we propose, or what I'd like to propose is that we move forward with a proposal to the board to utilize Amazon as a supplier using Prime, which would be no shipping. And in the interim right now, utilize the invoicing system. And with that, Wendy would be the point of contact or authorized order individual, and the department heads or any individuals that would require supplies would go through Wendy. And at that point, Sharon would handle the invoicing and you'd be the oversight, you'd be the overseer. So with that, you know, hopefully this is another way to streamline some of our process and get some of the other, you know, expenses under control, or give us more visibility to them on a monthly basis, instead of going to a dozen different suppliers here and there, and eventually might be able to save a significant amount of money, you know, over time. So with that, I present that to the board as a motion to approve.
Second, Diatley.
Moved by Hoffman, seconded by Diatley, to authorize the village to obtain an Amazon business account with invoicing. Prime, an Amazon Prime business account with invoicing. Okay, any further comments, questions, or discussion?
I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't do it.
Okay, no other comments or questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Prano.
Aye.
Okay, 6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, we have motion so carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
And thank you, Chief, for bringing that up. Okay, the last one, which, without going through it line to line, we spent a lot of time on the budget. Last week, it was the second meeting, reviewing all the revisions that we had made to the budget at that time. And if what everybody has been provided, Eugene, correct me if I'm wrong, everything in orange is where we, all those highlighted in orange are the areas that we discussed and finalized on at Thursday's meeting.
Yeah, the stuff in orange is stuff that I don't have a firm figure on. We have not gotten a invoice or proposal or anything from West Dundee for their computer management services. So I kind of based it off of the previous year's data. And I don't think, and I haven't heard that they're gonna, you know, tremendously increase it. Our Harris increased just by a very small amount. So that was the only kind of questionable one for pricing.
And the movement of the 200,000, right?
And the movement of the 200,000, right? So what we did is I originally had the ARPA money into the general fund, but to more properly account for it, to move it to the water fund, because the agreement we have with Hines for the water main replacements is about 100 and probably at a minimum 180,000.
So that 200,000 was moved. That was going to be utilized there anyway. So it was moved to reference that, to reflect that. And then legal services underneath engineering services on that page 5 of 6, you'll see is additional $700, well, $700. And that's for the additional incurred legal fees related to that. You know, I'm sure we'll see some additional fees related to the engineering. I think all of you are familiar with the West Dundee Water and Sewer, which Eugene was talking about. And if I'm correct, as of last Thursday at the meeting too, we're close to final resolution there. So we don't know what the final billing will be, but I think we'll be close, and we've accrued it every month. So I think we'll be fine. We've signed off and accrued it. But again, hopefully this will get beyond us very quickly because, you know, we incur legal fees with that too. And we've incurred some pretty stiff legal fees regarding that also.
One of the items on here is the electricity for the flumes, and if we have the agreement with West Dundee and we're able to remove the flumes, that's $2,500 we get to save.
Sewer gets the same.
Sewer gets the same.
Sewer fund saves that 2,500.
Correct.
We don't have it in general fund.
Yeah.
It is a savings to the village. If you take a look at this, gentlemen, you'll notice that we got a surplus at the end of the year of $700.
I do have one question.
Chocolate milk for everybody.
Yes, Joe?
Yeah, as you recall, Steve, we had gone several years without updating our schedule fee, which is referenced several spots in the village code. And Attorney Schuster had gone through that and clarified it, and we had a good list, and he had suggested that every year as part of the budget process, that be included in the budget process and presented to the board for a vote with the budget. Do you know if that made its way to the finance committee?
Yes, it did. They
Good,
took a look
okay,
at
because I did
the
not see that in the package at all, so,
There was no changes to the fees.
good, okay. Just want to make sure I carried through because we went a long time without updating that. There was some issues with it, so, good. That's best news I've heard tonight. Thank you, sir.
Well, I can say, Joe, that we've gone through, I think this is the third meeting that we had, and we've gone through line by line. It was a learning experience for me, but we've covered, I believe, every expense that the village could occur, every capital asset. It was pretty defined as we did a in-depth dive into the budget. And, you know, we were hoping that, you know, there's in the 5-year capital fund, there 100,000, which we don't know if we'll be able to utilize or not for playground equipment. That's one of the things that was there. But in the meeting, as we talked about in the finance meeting, I think we're talking well in excess of 100,000. I mean, that is probably bare minimum. I mean, some of the equipment in Kane County is anywhere from 250,000 to well in excess of $1 million. I mean, the parks in St. Charles, the parks in Elgin, and the parks in Geneva, there's parks there that are well over $1 million. And we're talking $100,000, which would probably be a drop in the bucket. So hopefully we'll be able to find other means. So with that, I guess since all of you hopefully had a chance to look at that, are there any questions with that? Any questions on the budget? Any items or lines? Joe, Ed, anybody? So with that, we would make the proposal to move forward with the approval, but, okay, President Pickett, and where's the next step with this now?
Well, right now, the Finance Committee has brought this draft of the 23 fiscal year budget forward. The board's had a chance to review it. If the board would like to, if you'd like to bring it up for a vote this evening, we can vote on accepting the recommendation from the Finance Committee with the budget for fiscal year 21 sitting in front of us.
And I've asked everyone's reviewed it, no questions?
No. Correct.
Okay, with that, then I make a motion that we approve the fiscal 2023 budget for the village of Sleepy Hollow and put it to the board for approval.
Second.
Moved by Hoffman, seconded by Thorne to accept the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget as presented. Any further comments, questions, discussion? No, being none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harney,
All right,
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Prano,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Right.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. Gentlemen, we have a budget going forward for fiscal year 23, starting May 1st.
Thank you.
We'll just have to do the appropriation.
Nice job.
Thank you, George. for all
And with
your
that, I'm done.
Thank you,
You're gonna run
George.
for your car.
Appreciate it. It's been a long, hard spring.
That's a
but I
good job,
think,
George.
you know, now you've got the appropriations ahead of you, but that's a quick brief one and you can rest until the audit.
And also Kelly, who's part of the finance committee, and Catherine, were a big help too. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, next item on the agenda, water and sewer. Mr. Nimitz. Are you on the dark
Yes.
side of the moon?
It was right here, so.
Okay, it was dark.
Oh,
here.
that's where I'd rather be right now, and I should be right now. That's that would be the moonrise over the mountains up in my son's place. Uh-oh, Ed, we lost them.
I know, you and I are here.
I wonder I don't have my phone on me to text.
It wasn't on our end, it's on their end.
It said Village of Sleepy Hollow left the meeting. I don't think they can continue the meeting. I don't have my phone on me. You got your phone on the?
Yeah, here, just a sec.
Yeah, can you bring it to me, dear?
You got a number? I can call them, Joe.
Well,
you probably-
I was gonna call John Florence. Linda's taking me the phone, but it's gonna take her about 20 minutes to get here, so I can go there. Let me go to her. So hang on. If anybody comes back, I'm gonna go get my phone, call John.
Okay.
I got it, dear. I thought I said I need my phone. You told me to bring it to you. Okay. Yep.
Hey, Siri, call Steve Diatley.
I don't see a Steve.
Hey, we lost you. It said recording is stopped, and a minute later kicked both Ed and I out. So did you guys not pay the bill?
No, the
Hello, Anthony?
computer did a security patch unexpectedly.
I believe from, yeah, well, yeah, what are we gonna do? Because the Attorney General in St. Charles said that if you're doing start this way, you cannot legally finish the meeting and violate the Open Meetings Act without us. So do we want to do it on a phone or something and phone in or?
Give me a minute, because I can't lose this recording.
Okay,
So,
but I am correct. As I said, we had an issue with that early on, and that, so we got to stop the meeting or adjourn the meeting or,
yeah, everyone here is stopped.
okay. That's weird. You think they would know better, wouldn't you?
I've asked them to change this, but
Ed, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
We can just, Ed and I, Steve or somebody, we can just put the phone there and probably hear and just finish the meeting on phone if we just want to finish it up. If it's going to take you a while. Okay.
I'm gonna start the meeting up again.
Okay. Did you hear that, Ed?
Yep.
Well, I see the logo. There we
Okay,
are. You're
I'm
muted.
back.
You're muted.
Back.
You're muted. Well, they're muted, so I can't hear anything. Can you hear anything, Ed?
No,
No, we can't hear you guys.
I think he's still working on it.
Okay.
We see you, but we can't hear you.
Okay, we
We can hear you.
got you now.
We got you now.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
I think Joe did that on purpose.
No. It said meeting is not being recorded anymore, and then it went, and then Ed and I were just chatting with each other.
Looks like it's encased in something.
Coming through the app.
Are you back?
Yep, everyone's back.
All right.
Okay.
Oh.
All I have is I fully agree with the raising the water demand fee, because Brian, when he had run the numbers, it suggested 35, but we agreed that when we raised it to 25, that was too much. So the only thing I'll say is Mark had sent a letter out saying we needed an ordinance to make it legal before he could put it in place. So I'd ask you, Gene, are you gonna have enough time if we get the ordinance at the first meeting in May to get the billing out in May, or do we have to delay that a month?
I think we should be able to get the billing out on time. The apartments are a little bit unique because we haven't even contacted them to let them know what was happening. So.
Well, I'm talking about the water billing, because we're supposed to raise the demand fee to 30.
Yeah,
on the
that's
water
already done.
billing.
It's already done, Joe.
But we need an ordinance from that email that Mark sent out, is that we have to have an ordinance first, and I didn't see the ordinance in the package.
We didn't receive one from it.
So Mark Schuster had replied to your email, to Tony's email, saying that we need an ordinance before we can put it in place.
The
And I
water,
didn't see
the water billing won't actually happen until like the 4th or 5th.
So that was my question. So we have time to pass the ordinance at the next meeting and get it in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that was my question for you, Gene. So
Every resident? Is that what he was saying?
No.
you're the sound is really bad, so I didn't get what Eugene said. So I guess let me start again. The ordinance for the $30 demand fee for water, if we pass that at the next meeting, that will give you enough time to get the billing out in time.
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. That's it. The sewer is a whole nother issue. And if you want to give me, I don't know what the status of that is. So that's all I have. Any questions?
No, that's it. Thank you, Joe. Police and Public Safety, Mr. Diatley.
Just one thing, I did hear back from Joe Cavallero in the Village of West Dundee about signage on the bike paths coming onto Locust. They are willing to work with us. Joe has sent me a few things. They're looking at putting more markings on their paths coming out, straightening up the signage that is there, putting up some new reflective signage as well as trimming the trees along there so it can be more visible from the road. So we're having an ongoing conversation and they are working with us, and I do appreciate that from Joe and from the Village of West Dundee. So more to come on that as we get into it and see where it goes, but I appreciate that. That's it.
And Chief's got his note in the packet, so.
Yep. I'll let everybody read that themselves.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Building and Environment, Mr. Thorne.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mark. Building and Zoning, Mr. Perino.
Barb Detmer's working on the Title VI chapter, the changes of zoning code that particularly affects building structures on properties. And speaking with her last week, she is reviewing that with Mr. Schuster. And her hope is that she would be presenting that to the board for a vote, probably the second meeting in May or first meeting in June. This had to do with delaying this change until the new fiscal year budget was, until the new fiscal year begins with a new fiscal year budget. So that should happen later this month, later the month of May or 1st of June. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Tony, or Anthony. Okay, old business. Any old business come before the board? Old business come before the board. New business. In new business, we've got an ordinance 2022-6 authorizing the sale of surplus personal property, to wit, the 2014 Ford Explorer. Do we have someone to please make the motion?
Motion Diatley, so moved Diatley.
Second, Harney.
Moved by Diatley, seconded by Harney to approve ordinance 2022-6, and our ordinance authorizing the sale of surplus equipment, to wit, the 2014 Ford Explorer. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, we've Got this going as a trade-in to
Dundee Ford.
Dundee
Yeah,
Ford.
we got two offers on it. Dundee Ford was originally lower. CarMax was a little higher. Dundee said, we'll match, just because we're closer, we'll match it. So they're gonna match it for us at $8,000. And that's the only vehicle that we currently have that is not under warranty. So that one kind of scares me a little bit.
Are they
So
coming out tomorrow?
as soon as I can.
You want me to sign the title before I leave tonight? Okay, there being no other comments, questions, or discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Farino,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes, the motion so carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, is there any other new business to come before the board?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Deanne, seconded by Thorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nimitz.
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Thorne.
Aye.
Mr. Harney,
Aye.
Mr. Dattley,
Aye.
Mr. Farino.
Aye.
6 affirmative votes, no negative votes. We are adjourned. We will see you all on May 2nd.
Good night, gentlemen.
We're not selling that. Sandy, I mean, dogs have been eating chili dogs in that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How many miles?